Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome back to another weather forecast here by Agent of the Forecast. And I know it's been basically a month since my last upload, and I know I promised when I started uploading again that I'll have a regular schedule, but that was still during tennis season. But I do have good news. Not only am I entering the last few weeks of school, I also the tennis season has officially ended last week or something like that. So I will definitely have a lot more time on my hands. Does that mean I'm going to be back to daily uploads? I'm not sure, but I will definitely post a few times a week now. At least I plan to. So again, I do really apologize for continuing to promise a regular upload schedule and not following what I've said, but I promise you this time I will get back to more uploads. Maybe 3 to 4 times a week. That's what I'm aiming for because I still have a lot of things like working out and all that good stuff. But yeah, without further ado, let's go ahead and get the forecast for today. So we're going to be watching out for a basically back-to-back severe weather outbreak potential across the plains in Tornado Valley, and then eventually up into portions of the north central and Midwest. So for tomorrow, we actually have a very widespread enhanced risk from basically central Nebraska to portions of the Texas Panhandle. And this was actually a lot larger of an enhanced risk, but with the latest 1730Z update, they actually have trimmed it down a little bit. So we're going to be watching out for basically severe storms, basically Friday through Friday night. And we're going to be seeing kind of two areas to watch out for. We have the kind of the triple point area, which is kind of towards South Dakota and the further portion of the slight risk. And then we have to watch out for portions across a dry line, which will be along that enhanced risk. And that's what we're going to be watching out basically for a very large hail, as well. Could be seeing some tornadoes. That's going to be from basically south central Nebraska towards Texas Panhandle, where we will be seeing those kind of biggest uh, triple threat, basically. So the enhanced risk includes around just under 1 million people. Like I said, from Nebraska towards Texas. Now we have a very widespread slight risk, and that's why we're going to be seeing between the dryland and triple point. We're going to be seeing a widespread severe weather risk. And again, with planes like this, your 850 millibar jets are like extremely expansive, and they kind of just go from basically north to south, unlike Dixie, where it's kind of like a very kind of small short wave. But here you're gonna be seeing multiple embedded short waves, and as well you're gonna be seeing overall really significant 850 millibar flow, which is why this risk is so expansive. So the tornado risk isn't going to be the biggest threat necessarily, and there's a kind of a little bit of mistake here on the drawing here. On the you see the 5% is not fully highlighted, but there we have two areas of 5%, including Southwest South Dakota, and then portion along that dry line area from basically northwestern Texas toward western Oklahoma and western Kansas. That's where we have that 5% initially at 13 Z. It was a only 2% tornado risk, but they have actually gone a 5, which I actually agree with. And I wouldn't really rule out the possibility that they kind of enlarge that 5% further into South Dakota. Um, that 5% includes areas in western South Dakota, and again along that dry line there. So these areas are on near Garden City, near Amarillo, Lubbock. You guys are definitely have to watch out for some tornadoes because if again you guys are on the dry line before they kind of upscale, we could very well see some possibly multi-cell supercellular storms or semi-discrete storms as well. That could very well produce all risk, including very large hail and winds. Additionally, with the tornadoes, here's a wind threat is a 30 non-sig, and again with really potential upscale growth, as well overall the really tremendous kinematics we are seeing here, specifically in the lower levels. We definitely are watching out for a pretty significant wind threat. Again, I would say this would be very much more towards aimed of a hail and wind day with a threat of tornadoes. But there's that 30 non-sig, same exact area basically where that enhances. So again, the 30% wind did definitely get minimized as well with the hail threat. There's a hail threat. Again, a 30 sig and a 15 sig hail. So like I said, this is basically be more of a really hail and wind day. Um, Along that dry line there, you're gonna be seeing some really steep lapse rates, and as well you're gonna be seeing really kind of your basically more calmer winds in the surface. Your 10-meter winds are gonna be pretty minimal compared to the rest of the area, so that's gonna definitely enhance the threat for hail. So there's your 39, there's your 30 sig and 15 sig. The overall sig includes around 1 million people, and then your 30% sig include around 570,000. So kind of just splits in half there. But yeah, definitely a pretty good threat for tomorrow. And then we have a day three. It's a very large slight risk here with a 15 non-state probabilistic outlook. So again, we'll be watching out. Kind of, there's going to be the back-to-back severe weather outbreak possible. I'm not going to get into as great extreme detail for day three as I will be going for day two. This would mainly be a forecast for tomorrow, not really necessarily including day three, because I want to keep this video as detailed and as short as possible. So I will most likely talk about day three more towards when it's day two, or possibly even tomorrow if I have time. But let's go ahead and get a look at the overall models. So let's go ahead and get a look here at the overall 12Z H bar. And the reason why I'm using the 12Z is because by the time this video is being filmed, the 18Z has not come out yet. So maybe when this video does come out, the 18Z would be out. But again, right now I'm living in the current and not the future. But here's the overall look at the 12Z. So we're going to be kind of skipping today's risk here. We're going straight towards tomorrow. So you kind of already see the strong 850 millibar flow really amplifying overnight into Friday early morning, from tonight to Friday morning. And obviously you want to be seeing kind of that risk maintaining kind of lower towards the south central today. But as when I go towards tomorrow, we're going to start seeing some surface cyclogenesis as this trough is lead towards the Rockies. So we're going to be seeing eventually by tomorrow afternoon, this 850 millibar ribbon flow will start to really amplify in its overall strength. So we're gonna start seeing a wide, like I said, it's gonna be a plains day, so it's gonna kind of be really widespread, kind of north to south oriented 850 millibar ribbon of flow. So we're basically talking all the way from Minnesota towards Texas. We're gonna be seeing some type of effect from this jet. And there's your pretty significant upper level, or your mid-level low right there along the Rockies there, just leads to the Rockies. So we're going to be seeing definitely some significant, or not significant, but we're going to be seeing some frequent pressure drops and height drops here along this general warm sector. So we are going to definitely be seeing a pretty significant severe weather threat amplifying as we continue in the afternoon. But basically 23Z, you're going to be really watching out for your dry line convection here. You're going to be seeing around 48 knots to 50 knots in the 850 millibar level. So definitely not the strongest, but again, definitely will get the job done, especially if you're talking about the hail day. You're not really looking at a super intense 850 millibar. Also, you're talking about the plains, not Dixie. So you're not going to be seeing a super like 80 knot 850 millibar like we saw or forecasted to see for was it, I think it was like 101. I think it was January 1st. That day was like an 80 knot 850 millibar, which obviously did not verify. But here's by Tuesday, they're going to start seeing this triple point threat start to increase in the overnight hours. So definitely watching out for the overnight hours across areas like Nebraska, South Dakota here. Definitely watching out for this general area. As by really Tuesday, start to see now these values getting to 63 knots, 64 knots. So it's going to really be as a result of this really just amplifying a lot. So definitely be watching out for this overnight threat, specifically towards that triple point where you see that cold front, warm front, and as well your dry line kind of meet up there in South Dakota. But let's go ahead and now look at the overall dew points here in your wind bar to see the overall orientation. Let me go and get ahead and this ad out. I don't have like ad blockers on Pivotal, so you're going to continue to see these ads. I know they're going to be very annoying, but bear with me. So let's now go ahead and get a look here at 17Z. So you're going to be seeing some low level ridging across this area, as well. You are going to be seeing a lot of kind of tropospheric dry air moving in. So that's why you're going to be seeing kind of this moisture kind of just get completely cut off in the south central right here. So you're going to be really watching out for your really closer to the early hours. That's where we're going to start to see kind of your threat develop tomorrow. Again, you're going to be seeing some like a really pretty significant amount of dry air moving in this general area. So that's why your Gulf moisture just gets absolutely suffocated here. So that's why you're not seeing a super huge risk in down towards areas like north central Texas or central Oklahoma. That's why it's kind of more towards the western part of that risk there. But again, let's go ahead and now look at further into that 21Z, 22Z, and this is we're going to be seeing a pretty significant triple point threat. There you see a lot of moisture closer to that actual low pressure itself, and then we go towards an even 19Z, you're going to be seeing a threat towards even portions there of Kansas and as well as portions of Iowa. But the HRR is definitely a little bit weird when it comes to the warm front. The warm front is like really, really far east compared to your other models. So that's going to be something to consider here. But you do see the pretty good dews kind of early on the day, and then it just gets absolutely suffocated by the HRR and by the overall dry air. And since your 850 millibar flow really isn't necessarily over the Gulf of Mexico, you're not going to be seeing an extreme amount of like um, significant amount of really transport of moisture all across Dixie. It's going to kind of be more towards, or not Dixie, sorry, across the plains. It's going to kind of be remaining towards that triple point threat. So that's where my 20Z you can be seeing pretty significant soundings here. At this point, still kind of capped off by EML. Uh, but as we now go towards around 22Z and further closer to that, towards that low pressure, you are going to be seeing some pretty overall good soundings here, especially towards the South Dakota area. You are going to be seeing a pretty significant amount of instability here. You are going to be seeing some pretty good lapse rates here, definitely, especially in the mid levels. You are getting pretty significant hail growth layer. Definitely specifically for this time of the year up there, that's pretty good sounding. That's why you do have some really extreme instability. Like you have 3,000 400 mid-clear cape here in this sounding towards. Let's see, where did we take this? It took it right there towards northeast Nebraska. You're gonna be seeing really good southeasterlies. So that's why you are gonna have to monitor this threat toward that triple point, because um that's a really good triple point sounding here. I mean, absolutely insane. Your lower levels aren't necessarily that strong, so definitely we'll have to watch out for some hail. Again, you aren't seeing any cap busts here yet. You have a pretty good uh, 800 millibar EML. I mean, that's a really good amount of instability developing because of that EML, and you have some pretty good orientation within your vectors. So, and that's obviously a very streamwise and backed sounding. I mean, that's just your ideal sounding. So, I think people are really sleeping on the risk here in the triple point. Everybody's really focusing on the dry line, which there is reason to. I mean, your dry line could definitely be a boom or bust. So, I definitely wouldn't bank on either of these locations for tomorrow. But triple point looks pretty promising if you look at the NAM again. That's still by 22Z. You're gonna be seeing some slight capping at this point. As you see this instability layer continue to move in, then you will start to see kind of that cap start to wear off. But that sounding there in Nebraska was insane. And then you go towards South Dakota, still seeing some slight cap busting here, but overall, you are definitely watching out for a pretty significant threat towards the Nebraska area tomorrow, and I think it's definitely being slept on. Again, the ARRR is kind of really a little bit weird with the eastern warm front. If we just go anywhere else, kind of towards Kansas or anything like that, they are a little bit less intense as other models. So I think the ARRR is definitely a little bit interesting when it comes to comparing other models. But let's not go ahead and get a look here at the overall lapse rates here to get a better look at this hail threat. So again, we are going to be watching out for our biggest hail threat in the south central area towards Texas, Oklahoma, and Kansas, and your typical, your normal or your original tornado plains or tornado alley, as you call it. So as we look at the overall lapse rates again, you're gonna be seeing some pretty insane lapse rates, maintaining the overnight threats here, or not overnight threats, sorry, in the overnight hours. So you're gonna be seeing some really you're gonna be seeing basically your dry adiabatic lapse rates kind of chilling there overnight, and that's why you're gonna be seeing that threat the day after, as your lapse rates are kind of just sitting there. You are going to definitely get put to use to basically the day after. So you're going to be seeing some pretty good lapse rates across even Kansas at 8.5. You're going to be seeing pretty significant amount of this looks like a post dry line sounding here. But yeah, definitely gonna be seeing some pretty significant hail. Even if you go towards even the Nebraska area, you are gonna be seeing some significant hail. But at this point, it's still kind of being cap busted here. But you have some pretty good lapse rates, like right there at your upper levels. You have some really insane lapse rates in the upper levels here, in your mid levels as well. But as you now kind of go towards 23Z and 22Z, at that point, that convection will kind of use all those lapse rates in, and kind of get pretty much freaking used and wasted at that point. Um, Sorry, someone was calling me. But yeah, let's go ahead and get back. So we were with the lapse rates. Let's not go ahead and get a look here at the overall hodograph. So I kind of really like the surface-based cape and hodograph kind of combination here. I know it's not that new, but I really like it, and it kind of gives you a better idea. Instead of having to click every single sound, you can get a look at the hodograph. So I really like this. But as it loads, again, we're going to be seeing a pretty widespread threat for tornadoes. Again, not necessarily like a super high threat or high confidence, but there is definitely a possibility, and there is the environment there. Um, so let's go ahead and get a look here at the thread. I don't know why it's taking so long to load for us. So as we get towards kind of the afternoon, you get that dry line. You get that dry line convection. You got that dry line instability starting to build up here. You have that dry line kind of lifting mechanisms kind of starting to kick in here by 17Z and 18Z. So that's where, excuse me, that's where we're gonna start getting that threat here. Especially kind of towards the Kansas area, you're going to start getting that really significant hail threat here. Again, you have, look at these lapse rates. I mean, I know there is kind of a weird looking EML here, but you do have some really insane lapse rates here. And there is still a possibility if you get the right storm in the right environment at the right time, you could get a significant storm here. But I'm really banking on the hail threat for this. You really have these temperatures significantly cooling with highs. So that's why we do have that 30 sig there. Uh, and again, we do still have that 5% Tor, but I really don't think that's the main area necessarily to watch out for. I'm watching out for that portion for the hail and the wind. I'm not necessarily banking on that area for the tornadoes. Again, the dry line can that's why dry lines are very odd. I mean, dry lines are very, it's like you bank on it or you don't bank on it. And that's why plain days are so hard to forecast. And I really don't necessarily want to bank on relying on the dry line for seeing tornadoes, but definitely a main area to watch out for. I mean, I'm telling you, we have just in the HRR alone, we have some pretty promising soundings here in eastern Nebraska, and as well even possibly up there towards northern Kansas. But I'm not as confident in northern Kansas because that's a little bit further from that triple point. But if you kind of go towards right that triple point, you are seeing some really good amount of instability. You do still have the potential for a cap bust, but with the amount of instability we have, uh, I do think that cap, that very slight cap, could very well break. But again, that's the thing. You don't want to bank on a cap bust breaking or lifting or anything like that. But definitely a pretty promising day, I'd say, at the least for significant hail as well, possibility for some tornadoes. And that triple point, though, I mean, look at this right here near southeast South Dakota. Very significant sounding here. I mean, you do have a very, really pretty much really good sounding here. You have a nice back sounding here. The southeasterly is really strong, bearing with high. You do have pretty significant mid-level or upper-level shear here as well. You do have some pretty strong lower-level shear at 41 knots at the surface of 3 kilometer difference. You do have a pretty good amount of stability. You do have 473 SRH, so you could possibly get some, like I said, right time, right storm, right place. You could get very well some rotating updrafts, and you have a very thick instability layer here. You have nearly 3,700 cape mixed layer cape. I mean, this is going to be a very unstable environment. So if you get a storm here right near the triple point at the right time, you're 23Z, somewhere near Elk Point or Pilger or anywhere like that, you are definitely going to be seeing a pretty nasty storm. And there's some definitely nasty potential. I mean, you have this very slight cap. I mean, with this instability, it could very well get absolutely just torn apart here, and basically lift the cap basically. So that's definitely a pretty promising day. So let's quickly look at the NAM. I want to compare the NAM here, not just look at the HRR. Like I said, I don't think I'm filming this video when the 18Z are out yet. So we're going to use a 12Z sadly. I know that's very sad, but let's look at the NAM. So the NAM has pretty much the same thing. And it starts to really amplify that trough. Basically at 0Z here, you're going to start seeing that's going to be right, like just like right after you start to get that first drawing convection. And at that point, that little jet just blows up here, and that's definitely going to allow for that significant overnight threat, including the wind threat. Um, Across the Midwest there. So definitely could very well see an expansion towards 30 wind. I really wouldn't doubt the possibility for an expansion that 30 wind. Let's go ahead and compare the kind of the warm front orientation, the overall location with the NAM and Asia bar here. Like I said, I think the Asia bar is a little bit further east than at least what I've seen so far. That could have changed with the NAM. But yeah, let's go look at the let's go ahead and look at the 21Z. So yeah, it looks like the NAM doesn't have kind of that dry air really suffocating that moisture as significant as the A has. By 21Z, you have kind of these lower 60s. So the A does seem to kind of be a little bit over dramatic, and that's why I wanted to compare the two models because A has it kind of really suffocating that air kind of too fast and kind of just too much. Like that doesn't look natural whatsoever. So definitely, the NAM definitely has a lot better of a threat than the A for the lower risk and the wind and hail threat, and even tornado risk down here towards Oklahoma and Kansas and near the dry line. So definitely a little bit more, I'd say, reasonable on the NAM here. You do still have that triple point threat right here near Nebraska and as well near the South Dakota area. It's not as aggressive, like I said. Then HFR does seem to be a little bit as an outlier. At least it looks like an outlier based on the intensity. Um, but yeah, that's what the NAM has. Actually, why don't we look at the NAM through kilometer as well? I want to kind of get a good comparison of all these models here. To kind of get a better look here, we're watching out for that kind of the dry line and comparing the dry line and triple point severity here. So let's go ahead and get a look at the NAM 3 kilometers. So here's about 19Z, 20Z. Again, definitely a lot more moisture than what the HBR is having. I don't know why I said having. Kind of see some kind of like some little gaps here. I mean, there's like little gaps in breaking of this moisture, but I really don't want to bank on any breaking in that moisture that early, like the HBR had it breaking like at 17Z. But still gonna be watching out a pretty apparent threat of hail, kind of towards the western risk here along that dry line. Going to be seeing you're gonna be seeing some high sevens into the mid eights later, eventually later on here for hail along that drawing. Specifically near the Dodge City area, you are gonna be seeing some pretty good laps. There's 8.4 between surface and 3 kilometer. Again, you definitely do have the photographs that would support a 5 tornado threat and would definitely support possibly a few tornadoes. But really as well, again, there's a turbo point. That's where we're gonna be seeing kind of your most amount of moisture, and you still do have kind of these models kind of having it. I don't know. That was a very bad voice crack. Having it kind of cap busting until like later on. So I think I don't want to necessarily bank on the triple point because it's still a threat of kind of cap busting. But I think a lot of these are kind of very weak cap bustings with the EML here, and the EML is very low. It's a very kind of it's like a sinking EML. Basically, that's what it looks like. So I don't really want to bank on the triple point. But again, if you get a triple point, it's if you get these storms on the right time, the right place, you're going to be seeing some nasty storms in triple point. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you guys later.